Welcome to Reform Thinking. Today we're going to look at an idea that, at first, might sound like a complete contradiction. It's the idea that our personal happiness isn't something that fights against holiness, but is actually a key part of it. Now, this way of thinking is often called Christian hedonism, and it gets right to a tension that a lot of Christians feel. This conflict between our natural desire for joy and the Bible's call for self-denial. So we're going to see how those two ideas actually fit together. All right, so to really get our heads around this, we have to start with a clear definition. What in the world is Christian hedonism?
Okay, so at its heart, Christian hedonism is all about the pursuit of joy. And this is the most important part, not just any joy. We're talking about the pursuit of our deepest, most lasting satisfaction in God. The argument is that our desire for happiness and God's command to love Him aren't two different things. They are completely and totally linked.
So this is the central point. This is the phrase that really flips the script on that whole duty versus delight debate. It suggests that our satisfaction in God isn't some selfish side effect of being a Christian. It's the very thing that brings Him the most glory. And this isn't just a nice idea or a good suggestion. The pursuit of joy in God is actually commanded all over the Bible. The Psalms tell us to delight in the Lord. Paul tells the Philippians to rejoice in the Lord always. And what's more, failing to serve God with joy is actually treated as a pretty serious problem. So if we're actually commanded to find our joy in God, how does that change how we think about things like love and duty? Let's look at how this one idea really reframes some of the core parts of being a Christian. That tension we all feel, right? The one between what we should do and what we want to do, well, that comes from sin. And the whole point of God's grace is to fix that brokenness, to make His commands the actual desire and delight of our heart. And this means that real love for other people isn't just about going through the motions. It's about the cheerfulness behind the action. An act that's done just because you feel obligated, well, it just doesn't have the same weight as genuine, glad-hearted love. Now, let's be honest, the reality is our hearts can be pretty sluggish sometimes. We don't always feel joyful about obeying. So what are we supposed to do when that happens? Well, instead of just shrugging and accepting that joylessness, we're actually called to fight against it. It's a matter of obedience. And this is how. First, you confess it. You pray about it. And then you get up and you do the right thing anyway, trusting that the act of obedience itself can be what God uses to spark that delight all over again. Okay, this is one of the most fascinating results of this whole idea. It turns out that pursuing joy in God is actually a powerful way to fight against pride. Think about it. This view casts us not as proud philanthropists who are doing God a favor, but as needy welfare recipients. Our main posture is to just stand there with our hands out, receiving grace and joy from a source that never runs out. And that position of being a receiver is a great guard against pride. And this really shows how pride can show up in different outfits. It's not just about boasting when we succeed. When we're suffering, pride can look a lot like self-pity. It's what's been called unapplauded pride. Both of them come from this deep-seated feeling that we deserve admiration for what we've done or for what we've been through. So how does this break that cycle? Well, when you start to see suffering through the lens of gaining an incredible reward, like Jesus talks about in Matthew chapter 5, it becomes a reason for joy, not for self-pity. Your focus shifts from what you're losing now to what you're going to gain later. All right, of course, this whole idea of chasing after joy seems to smack right into one of Jesus's clearest commands, the call to deny ourselves. So how in the world do we make sense of that? This is probably the number one objection people have, and it's a good question. How can a command to pursue joy ever line up with a command to deny yourself? On the surface, they look like total opposites.
The argument here is that self-denial in the Bible isn't about giving up on pleasure entirely. It's actually about choosing the best, most lasting pleasure over all the cheap, fleeting ones. It's a strategic choice for maximum long-term joy.
Esau is the perfect picture of someone who got this wrong. He sold his entire inheritance for one bowl of stew. The problem wasn't that he wanted the stew. The problem was that he despised his birthright. He traded a huge, lasting blessing for a tiny, immediate pleasure. His mistake wasn't being a hedonist, it was being a really bad, short-sighted one. So, when you put all of this together, we finally get to the highest purpose of the Christian life, which is where God's glory and our joy come together. The connection here is really direct and simple. Just think about your own life. When you truly enjoy something, a song, a movie, a beautiful view, your delight in it naturally honors it. It's the same principle here. Our delight in God is the very way we show how supremely valuable He is.
And what this means when you get right down to it is that there's no conflict between God's purpose for His own glory and our deep desire for pleasure, as long as that pleasure is found in Him. They aren't two separate things, but really two sides of the very same coin. And this leads to this small but incredibly powerful change to that famous answer from the Westminster Shorter Catechism. That one little word, by, changes everything. It turns our pursuit of joy from a competitor for worship into the very act of worship it was always meant to be.